Garg, other trustees of the trust, the societies, the directors of the two institutions, members of the staff and my young friends. I am personally very grateful to Shri Garg for having invited me as a guest at this annual function of the institution. For the last several years, whenever he and I meet, though both of us have a close political proximity, a much larger time of our discussion is taken up in discussing other works that he does, including this institution. This has been a subject of interest, curiosity and learning for me. He mentioned just now in the passing, but I want to compliment the trust and the societies for having embarked on such an ambitious initiative. About 2 to 3 years ago, probably the best known in global charities, Warren Buffett had come today. And there was a lunch of a few members of parliament around a rectangular table which was fixed with him. He was accompanied by one Mr. Jain, who is his closest associate. And he gave the structure of how they've donated a major part of their wealth. And then he asked a question as to what is the nature of corporate charities in India. Because Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, all these people who emerged in the West have always donated a large part of their corporate incomes and willed it to charities. So most of my colleagues were very confused. Now under the new Companies Act we have a specific provision for corporate social responsibility. At that time there was no such provision. And corporate charities in India are almost unheard of, almost negligible. So while my colleagues were struggling to give a reply, I told them that you must understand that in Indian society, charity is not unknown. Philanthropy is not unknown. It's only corporate charities which don't take place in this manner, as in your society. And the first illustration that came to my mind, I gave the example of how those followers of Maharaja Agrasen always donate a part of their income. And across the country, particularly in North India, you have huge number of institutions of this kind which have come up. We've always, in the context of politics, seen religion, caste, community being mentioned in a more derogatory manner. But actually it's an instrument which has become a cohesive instrument for the community itself. So while the Surajmal College or Maharaja Agrasen Institution or Bhagwan Parshuram Institution, and if you travel across the country, You will now find, initially it used to be schools. The Christian missionaries had set up schools, the Arya Samaj had set up schools, also colleges, the Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee had set up institutions. Then came a transient phase where you today have two kinds of institutions, those which are purely commercial, set up with a business motive, and those which have been set up actually for the welfare of the community where profit motive doesn't exist. And in a large number of cases, those which have been set up for a commercial motive also have been expanding. The profits are ploughed back into further institutions. And this is extremely necessary in India for two good reasons. The first is that we lived in an impression in the first 30-40 years that it's the exclusive prerogative and responsibility of the state, the governments, to set up institutions. Now the governments can only set up institutions if they have money in their pocket. And more money in the pocket of the government means higher taxation, which actually ends up receding progress. So beyond a point we realized that this was counterproductive. So governments will set up institutions, whether it's hospitals or educational institutions, schools, colleges, within the limitation of its resources. So that at least at a very reasonable expenditure, the underprivileged can go and take the benefit of those institutions. There is a second reason where you must realize that there is a big change taking place in India. World over, and this is now considered not merely a social analysis, it's an economic concept. Population is a resource. Excess population can also be a liability. If you look at the developed countries in the West, their populations are going down. So if you have a couple of wife and husband, two people, with two children, you stabilize when two are replaced by two. So if you look at Europe, if you look at North America, two are generally being replaced by anything between 1.2 to 1.6. So therefore population actually and effectively is going down. You have marriages ending up in divorces, you have single child, you have people who are not getting married because of economic pressures. So the concept of family itself is disintegrating. India, we had 2 being replaced by 3.2 at one stage. And that's how our population increases. What do you do with excess people? The number of people you require to man the economies in those developed countries, you have lesser number of people. So they are short of IT professionals, they are short of engineers, they are short of doctors. Why is it that the health service in England and America is manned by Indian doctors? Because they are short of doctors themselves. Why is it that nurses are in demand, school teachers are in demand? Because their population effectively is going down and they need the human resource from India. Now this is in economic terms called as a demographic differential. In the demography of the two regions there is a differential which is built up. And therefore to even out this differential you require people to travel. There is a transfer of human population which will take place. So when I was a student we used to call it brain drain. And we felt that India has inadequate people who are trained minds, educated. Why should they get educated here and go elsewhere? Now I find the debate has changed. What do we do with the surplus human resource that we have? So obviously they will go and work wherever the jobs are available. So as a result, you will find from Saudi Arabia to the United States to the eastern part of the world to Australia, millions of people travel now. References have been made to the WTO. In the services sector of the WTO, there is an area called Mode 4. Mode 4 is transfer of human population as an economic resource, and therefore you have bilateral and multilateral arrangements as to how much is permissible, how much is not permissible. And therefore to set up institutions, it's extremely important that we train as many human minds as we can. Now when you set up institutions, you will have good, bad, indifferent, all kinds of institutions. There has to be competition. The market forces will eliminate those who can't deliver. And it's only those who retain a certain amount of excellence will be able to survive and sustain. What applies to institutions is going to apply equally to all students who are present here. This whole effort of the community and your families, your parents, to train you as a human mind and make you into a first-rate professional is actually training an economic resource for the society. You are all being trained equally, but the choice is yours as to what course you choose to adopt for yourself. You can use the fast track, and I can tell you there is one big change. In politics, still surnames and dynasties and families matter. But in commercial careers, they don't matter. If the concept of survival of the fittest were ever true, it's true today. So those of you who wish to make the best out of this opportunity that you've got can actually find yourself in terms of a career on a fast track. Today being a more market-oriented economy, a market-oriented economy is slightly cruel in character. It certainly doesn't accept those who fail, whether it's human beings or its products. There is very little space even for those who attain a certain level of mediocrity. But if you are able to achieve a standard of excellence, then sky is the limit. And that standard of excellence, if you are able to achieve it, will determine whether you get on to the fast track or you are on a moderate track still struggling. In a competitive world, in any profession, any career, any business, the crowding is always at the bottom. On the top there is no crowding, there is always a space. That is where you really have to target and get. The benefit of an institution of this kind, and I am aware of the fact that amongst the institutions of the Indraprastha University, this is now rated as perhaps the best. The infrastructure speaks for itself. The best of Delhi University colleges are nowhere close to this infrastructure. Government institutions are nowhere close to this infrastructure. And if you are able to get the best of academic training from your teachers, I think you have to take it as a challenge. It's an investment the society is making on you. You have to reciprocate back by trying to achieve, and achieve not merely in terms of the number of marks you get. I've always believed that in terms of long-term careers, academic performance matters. The personality matters a little more. And various ingredients of personality And these are undefined parameters. How you conduct yourself, your levels of ethics, your levels of integrity, your levels of credibility, your own articulation, your understanding of subjects. And an understanding of subjects, now sky is the limit. I studied, or most of us must have studied in an era where you just bought textbooks and read them. Today, textbooks are only a minuscule part of your curriculum. There is an ocean of information available now, and available for the free. These are all technological inventions on the net which have changed the world. And therefore, those who are missing out this opportunity are missing out such a great opportunity which is otherwise available to them. I have some researchers who assist me, and I get an opportunity to read at least 200 documents in a day. They keep transferring onto the net. I sit with my iPad in the car, or when I wake up early morning or late at night, and I keep glancing through each one of them and something gets absorbed in me. And all this is almost for free. For us at a later stage in the life, this facility is available. For you, you've been born with it. And therefore the avenue of enhancing your own personality, your knowledge, your understanding of various subjects. Today you can't take up a plea, I don't know anything on this subject. That's a part of your personality. And therefore, my one sentence advice to all of you would be, you've been privileged to be a part of a great institution, being taught by the best of teachers. Make the best out of it. And how fast you move will depend on the track on which you will get into. There is a lot of space available. There are a huge number of career opportunities. And I'm sure there is no substitute for initiative. There is no substitute for a desire to grow. No substitute for a desire to achieve excellence. It is these years which will determine the track that you are on. And I have no doubt that those with a little extra initiative will always come and be in the first row. And that is where you will acquire a lot of space to give back to your families, to yourself, to your society, what you are benefiting in terms of the input that you are getting from this institution. Well, thank you very much. And once again, I am extremely grateful to the society for having invited me to interact with you. My best compliments to those who are going to be honored and awarded for achievements today. And I am sure the others will try for the next year. Thank you.